Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another figure discussion video. This video is going to be a lot more akin to my why figure reusing matters video, because I wanted to sort of discuss and I suppose at the end of the day theorize, because we really don't have a clear-cut answer as to why this is the case, why superhero has been such mistreated in terms of figures, not to mention merchandising, even though of course on this channel we primarily focus on figures and the whatnot, right? The merchandising in general, and of course in the grander scope of things, the marketing for the movie has been notoriously very, very poor. Now, today, I want to do a little bit of a comparison between some of the things that happened with Dragon Ball Super Broly upon its release in terms of figures, and then take a look at how Dragon Ball Super Hero has handled such things, and from there, sort of discuss possibly why this is the case, or maybe some ideas behind this. I'm sure that most of you are aware that in general, like I said in the sort of intro to this video, the marketing for this movie has been very poor. There's been a severe lack of ads, right? There hasn't really been that many trailers that have been really pushed out very heavily, right? There hasn't been a lot of advertising, right? There was a lot of people that didn't even know that a new Dragon Ball movie released, which is absolutely insane, right? There was absolutely not enough marketing for this movie done, and that reflected a lot in the ticket sales in the box office of this movie, right? Which is very unfortunate to see, and as it stands, that sort of extends to the merchandising and especially the figures. So let's take a look at Dragon Ball Super Broly first, to give you a little bit of context as well. You can see here that Dragon Ball Super Broly released December 14th in Japan. If we fact check this on IMDb, just because, you know, this is just what it comes up on Google, you can see that here in Japan it came out on the 14th. And funny enough, in the USA, it only came out a month later, a day before, technically, I guess. But obviously Japan, you know, got it technically before that. However, this was, of course, the premiere, right? So really the date is the 14th, so technically we here the States got it a day sooner, right? Because the premiere is obviously sort of like the early showing or whatever. So kind of funny that we ended up getting it a day early. But yeah, the date to keep in mind here is December 14th, because that's when general audiences were able to see this movie. Now, what about the figures, right? Dragon Ball Super Broly up until this point has had a plethora of figures made about it. We are still getting figures from the Broly movie to this day. Obviously, Broly and Gogeta are super popular characters. Not to mention, obviously, Vegeta got the Super Saiyan God form. There's the Blue Boys from this movie. All kinds of stuff has been made from this movie. But what about the very first couple of figures? Now, of course, when we talk about this, we're mostly talking about prize figures and Ichiban Kuji figures. We're not including our little chibi figures here like UDMs and UG. We're not talking about the mini, like, you know, little chibi figures or anything like that. You know, we're strictly basically talking the prize figures, right? We're not even really going to discuss too much in this video SH Figuarts, because that's sort of like an entirely separate thing, right, that you could even dissect in and of itself, right? The main focus of this video is, of course, the prize figures and the Kuji figures. And even with the SH Figuarts figures, right, this is the Figure Rise figures, right? You can see that even for Figure Rise, the model kits, right, we had Gogeta Blue come out on the 8th, right? That's December 8th of 2018, which is before this movie came out, which is kind of crazy. So if that's not an indicator already, that should be, right? And then, of course, I'm actually not seeing the SH Figuarts figures on here. I know they're here, but I'm just not seeing them. There's, okay, so Vegeta came out much later. I think Blue Goku was the first, if I'm remembering correctly. I'll see if I can't find him and maybe put him on the screen at this section of the video. But regardless, of course, our focus moving on to what we're looking at today, the prize figures and the Kuji figures. So this, of course, was the Broly in the first Ichiban Kuji set that we got for the Broly movie, right? The 20th film. This Ichiban Kuji was iconic. There are so many great figures from this Ichiban Kuji. Obviously, of course, we got the very first King Cluster Broly. We got the Blue Gogeta, and we got the Super Saiyan Gogeta as well. We got the Super Saiyan Blue Goku and the Super Saiyan Goku. I actually have the Blue Goku and Broly from this Ichiban Kuji in my collection. I love the Broly from this set. But this set originally came out in 2018 on the 4th of December. If you're curious about this, basically they reran this Kuji in Japan, and that's why when you scroll over these, if we go back to that Ichiban Kuji, here we go, you can see that it says 2019, but that's because that was technically like the new quote-unquote release date. But initially, this was released on the 4th, right? And when was the movie released again? That's right, the 14th. We had an Ichiban Kuji for the Broly movie before it even came out. Now, obviously, we're not really talking about stateside because, of course, in terms of figures, we get everything if we get an overseas release way later than Japan originally gets it. So we're talking strictly initial release date because obviously if you're a figure collector, you're looking into the Japanese scene anyway, and you can see the pictures of the figures being released regardless. So that's already something pretty insane. We had a full set from the Broly movie, right? Even though the figures aren't anything too insane in terms of like the poses or like the I mean, the sculpting is really solid on all of them. Actually, I would say that Goku's sculpting is really, really good, and so is Broly's. But it's not like crazy poses or anything like that, right? It is, you know, pretty like, obviously this is Goku's standard stance, but it's of course when he's looking at Broly powering up, right? A sort of generic pose for Broly, and then Gogeta hitting this pose, which I think is when he lands right in front of Whis, when he's like, "Don't worry, Whis, I got this," right? When Whis was kind of fighting Broly for a little bit. But nonetheless, a full Ichiban Kuji, right? With characters from the movie before it even came out. Let's talk about this next. We have the fantastic set, The Ultimate Soldiers, the movie, right? This set, of course, was one of the best sets, in my opinion, from the Broly movie. This set really captured the aesthetic of the Broly movie, in my opinion. I think the Goku, Vegeta, and Broly from this are some really, really fantastic figures. And Broly himself was actually released on the 11th of December. He was the first figure in the set. I remember being so excited about getting this figure, and I still have it up on my shelf to this day. It's a fantastic figure. But again, what date is this? The 11th, right? The 14th is when the movie came out. Not to mention, if we take a look at this set again, right, you can see that Vegeta came out the 20th, Goku came out the 18th, and Gogeta came out the next year, right? So obviously, the figures released sort of month by month. Besides Goku and Vegeta, they came out in the same month, and I guess they came out the same time as Broly. But obviously, it released sequentially, right? It wasn't all at the same time, because that's usually how they do a set for prize figures, right? But regardless, Broly came out then, and the figures released, right? These guys, obviously very close to the movie's initial release date, and then, you know, Gogeta was kind of the straggler of the bunch. But regardless, the set still started, right, before the movie again. And this figure right here, which was also one of the first Gogeta figures, right? This was the Bandai Namco Arcade exclusive Super Kamehameha Gogeta. I actually have this figure in my collection. The base form one was released later. Funny enough, I had a chance to buy this guy at one point for like 30 bucks, and I really should have, and I didn't, because now he's super expensive since he's kind of rare nowadays. But I do have this original Blue Gogeta figure in my collection. I absolutely love it. I think it's one of my favorite Blue Gogeta figures still to this day. And again, Namco Arcade exclusives, you could only get him at Namco Arcades in Japan, right? So, of course, your boy imported him. The 14th was when this guy was released. And as you can see, that is the release date of the movie. So, I think by now you understand my point with the Broly movie, right? Obviously, there were tons of figures, right, already released for the Broly movie. And not to mention, right, the other thing that I really want to hit home with this, right, let's go to the Ichiban Kuji page, is that the characters' final forms were released before the movie even came out, right? Full Power Broly, right, and Super Saiyan Blue Gogeta, right? right? These are, of course, the strongest forms that they attain in the movie, right? There are figures of them already. You may see what I'm alluding to here already. Now, let's move on to Dragon Ball Super Super Hero. As you can see, the initial release date for Dragon Ball Super Super Hero was June 11th, 2022. And if we check this on IMDb, you can see that yes, in Japan, it was released June 11th, and all these other countries, basically June 18th, with a couple of stragglers later on, right? I know some countries didn't even get it until recently. Yeah, France had to wait until this month. I'm so sorry. Crazy how this movie was kind of released like this. But regardless, the date that we're going to be keeping in mind is June 11th. Now, let's take a look at all of the merchandise that we have for this movie. First of all, before we even take a look at the dates at anything, I also want you to see how many figures we have in comparison just in general, right? For this movie, right? That was the first day, basically, or like days leading up to the movie, including the first day of the movie's release, and they already had that many figures. Keep in mind, this full Ichiban Kuji set was here, right? We had the Ultimate Soldier set, and this guy had two variations, right? He also had the Super Saiyan variation released the same day that he came out, right? Look at how small this pool is, right? All, like, only to this day, right, actually released, right? Because, of course, we still have, you know, the Goku and Vegeta coming up. If you've been watching the figure news, you would know a little bit about these guys, right? We have these guys coming up. We, of course, have the Super Saiyan Gohan coming up. We have the potential Unleashed Piccolo coming up. We have this guy who was just announced, the BOS Gohan, right? But in terms of figures of release, the only thing that we've gotten for prize figures is the Goku and Vegeta. We got the Piccolo. We got the Ultimate Gohan here, and then we got the Gamma 1 and 2. Where's the... There they are. The Gamma 1 and 2 prize figures, right? And then, of course, for the Ichiban Kuji, we got the regular Ichiban Kuji set that had a bunch of characters from the movie that's basically like this whole row besides the Gammas at the end, right? So, already, that really isn't a lot of figures that were, you know, released around this movie's release, you know, even up until this point, just in general, considering how much stuff was on the first day. And again, I'm sure you saw this list, right? Obviously, this is a couple years since the movie has released. But even around the time of the movie's release, there was still way more stuff releasing. And, you know, again, we didn't even really go too in-depth on the figurized standard aspect of this or the SH Figuarts aspect of this, right? So clearly, you can see that there is a pretty big discrepancy from the get-go. But let's go ahead and take a look at the dates. So let's look at our prize figures first. We got the boy Piccolo, we got the boy Ultimate Gohan, and of course we have Gamma 1 and 2. We'll just open Gamma 1 because they were released. Actually, let me fact check that real quick. Were they released on the same day? I think they were. Yeah, both on the 7th. Okay. So, we have the 7th was when Piccolo released. He actually released the same day as Gamma 1 and 2. And then Ultimate Gohan released a month prior on the 24th. Now, let's do our little bit of mental math here, right? June. So we have January, February, March, April, May, June. So that's the 6th month, right? The 11th. The first figure for this movie, right? And to be fair, we do have Goku and Vegeta here, which were released the 23rd, right? Which was, what would that be, like 12 days after the movie? I'm not good at mental math, I apologize, but that sounds right. And then, of course, Ultimate Gohan, right, releasing, I believe that would be 13 days after the movie initially released, right? And then, of course, these guys following suit, or actually coming out, I'm sorry, these guys did come out a couple days before the movie. I'm getting my months mixed up. So Piccolo and Gamma, let me move Gohan in the right spot so my brain can handle this properly. So Piccolo and Gamma 1 and 2 were released before the movie came out, right? They were released on the 7th. Ultimate Gohan was released on the 24th. So, that is at least 3 figures that we have going here for before the movie's release date. So, that's good, right? However, let's take a look now at the Ichiban Kuji, right? The Ichiban Kuji here, as you can see, the 2nd, right? The 2nd is the date that it came out. So, that obviously came out a month after, actually, because this is the 7th month, not the 6th. So this would have been July, right? Like the beginning of the July Start the beginning of the July. In the beginning of the July. In the beginning of July was when this Ichiban Kuji released. So not before this movie came out, or a couple days after, or the day that it came out, or anything like that. You know, obviously it's not a full month because it's not July 11th, but it's still probably like 2/3 of a month, I think, is a decent estimate in terms of the Ichiban Kuji, right? So already, that's pretty crazy considering that the Broly movie had one even before it came out. And 3 prize figures to their name, right, in terms of releasing before the movie, right? For SH Figuarts, just because they're here, right, Goku did release before the movie came out, and Vegeta did come out a little bit after the movie came out. But Piccolo himself, right, was actually the first one. He beat both of them out, which I thought was interesting that they released him first. He came out very early. He, I believe, is technically the first superhero figure. I don't know if any of the minifigures technically came out before him, but I'm pretty sure that that is technically the first superhero figure that we had released, which is kind of funny, but also appropriate because it's Piccolo. And then, of course, basically a month after the movie came out, we got the SH Figuarts Ultimate Gohan, right? Interestingly enough, no Figuarts standard model kits. I didn't even think about that. Very interesting. I did not even notice that. I haven't heard anything about those being released either. I'm kind of surprised they haven't done one for Gamma 1 and 2. So, you kind of see my point here, right? A severe lack of prize figures, right? Only Gamma 1 and 2 and Piccolo released before the movie. The only figures released before the movie otherwise were the SH Figuarts Piccolo and the Goku. And the other big elephant in the room that, of course, we have to acknowledge is no orange Piccolo figure and no Gohan Beast figure. That, to me, is pretty insane, considering the fact that Gogeta and Broly had figures of their final forms, in fact, with Gogeta, multiple, right, released on the first day or before the movie came out. Now, I understand that this, I guess, sort of gets into a little bit of like, oh, spoilers, right? Because obviously you don't want people being spoiled to your movie before they even go to see it, right? They don't want to be spoiled for the climax. Well, here's the problem with that, right? Not only was it already being advertised that Gogeta was going to be in the movie in Super Saiyan Blue, in fact, before the movie came out, ironically enough, when I can't believe they did this. When people walked into the theater, they received a little postcard for the movie that was just like either the Broly movie poster or literally a picture of Blue Gogeta. Could you imagine avoiding spoilers for the movie? And the guy who punches your ticket hands you the little postcard. You look down and see the biggest spoiler in the movie. I would have been mad. I'm not gonna lie. I'm very glad that did not happen to me. But for these guys, right, Orange Piccolo and Gohan Beast, we did know about these guys very far before the movie actually released from a couple of different ways, right? Obviously, there was some leaks, but we're not really counting that into this because, of course, we're talking official sources here. However, before the movie released in the West, they actually did show trailers that had Gohan Beast and Orange Piccolo in it. So, if it was an aspect of spoilers, they really weren't doing a good job at hiding it. And obviously that's not really the case because, of course, you know, literally they showed trailers with the whole basically Gohan Beast scene in it of him transforming. So it wasn't about that. So it is so confusing to me, right, to sort of bring this all together, that they have not released a figure of Gohan Beast and Orange Piccolo up until this point, and to an even lesser extent, just given this movie more love in the figure department, right? Only having the 3 prize figures the first day is just kind of crazy to me. And all things considered as well, right? Gamma 1 and 2 are basically the same figure. I know that's more so because their design is so similar, but like, it is the same figure, basically just flip-flopped, right? It's just the color of the cape is changed, and they changed their head a little bit, right? And obviously the paint job. So it's just so strange to me that they have treated this movie like this. Now, obviously, we do now have the SH Figuarts Orange Piccolo coming up. Thankfully, of course, we got to see this guy at NYCC recently. We saw the prototype of this guy, and of course, this official image was released of him. We also got the teaser where on the same display with Orange Piccolo, it said that there was going to be another figure announced next month, which we're kind of assuming is Gohan Beast, considering, you know, it was on Orange Piccolo's stand, right, his display at the event. So, why is this the case? That is a question that I really wish that I could answer for you. Because honestly, I am not sure. It baffles me that this is the case with the figure department. And it also baffles me that this is the case with the marketing department. If I had to take an educated guess for you, knowing everything that I know about figures and having keeping up with the figure scene for a couple years now, and, you know, really thinking about this for a while, and of course, you know, being involved with some of the little nitty-gritties of figure collecting and, you know, how they release these figures, I would assume that it has to do with the marketing of the movie in general. Obviously, with the movie's marketing being so poor, I guess it just sort of seeped into the figures as well, where the marketing for these certainly wasn't as heavily emphasized, I guess would be the best way to put it, as it was for the Broly movie, which is a bit of a shame because obviously this movie is fantastic. It's got great characters, and of course Gohan Beast and Orange Piccolo are crazy hype forms, a lot of fun. People really, really like them. Obviously they are two of the biggest parts of the movie, and, you know, basically people's favorite parts of the movie for a lot of people, right? So it is quite the strange phenomenon that we are here where we're at. And I think the even crazier thing about this, you know, to sort of put the cherry on top to this discussion, is the fact that the movie was delayed in the first place, right? This movie was supposed to come out a couple months earlier, but a couple months before that, Toei got hacked, right? I'm sure most of you remember seeing that. You know, we talked about it a lot on social media in the Dragon Ball circles, that, you know, Toei got hacked and a lot of their information got leaked. And so because they kind of had to pick up the pieces from that, they had to push back the release of the movie for Japan and for the West. So they even had more time to plan out better figures for this, right? They had even more time than originally allocated for this to sort of plan this out, right? Because even though Bandai and Toei do work hand in hand in terms of like merchandising, because obviously they have to plan, you know, they know what's going to be in the movie. I mean, look at the Broly movie, right? We knew that Blue Gogeta was going to be in it. We see the figures, right? Obviously the figure planning department knows that it's going to be in the movie because the figure's out before the movie come out, right? So they work hand in hand, but they are not the same entity, right? Obviously with these guys, right, Bandai is able to schedule out figures basically as they want to because they run the figure side of things. So it's baffling to me that they have fumbled the bag on this, and it is really a shame to see. But ladies and gentlemen, I would love to hear what you have to say about this in the comments section below. Please let me know your thoughts on all of this as well. If you have any thoughts or theories as to why we have ended up into the position that we are in right now for the release of the superhero figures, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. It is really unfortunate that we don't have a solid concrete answer as to why this is the case. Again, it feels kind of a little bit sorry of me to end the video on this note, but I really don't have an answer to the question that this video proposes. Why has Dragon Ball superhero figures been so mistreated? I really don't know. But again, please let me know what you think in the comment section below. If you enjoyed, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I would love to do more videos like this in the future. So please let me know if you enjoy this type of content. I love talking about figures so much, not just taking a look at them, but just having a conversation about them. And this is the perfect sort of outlet to do that for. So hope to do more videos like this in the future for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Dokkan out. Peace.